Hi everyone, thanks for watching this video. Please do subscribe my channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Put your likes and comments on the videos and make this video reachable to as many as possible by sharing it. Let's get started. So the topic that we are seeing in this video is group by and sorting. These two operations are something that are very much useful whenever we want to summarize the data, when to get any relevant insights. So first let us understand the concept of it. First, let us understand the concept of group by. So this is the data that we are working on. In this data, if we want an output in such a way that gender wise, we want the average spend. Gender wise, we want the average spend. And we also want to understand that gender wise, what are the total number of customers? That is, what is the count of male, what is the count of female, and we also want for male customers what is the average spend, for female customers what is the average spend. So if we have to do that in the Excel itself, one good way to do is directly using a pivot table. So we can just select the data, we can click on insert, create a pivot table, and we can place gender in the rows. We can place spend in the values, and instead of summation, since we want the average, we'll put it as average, and we can just put the count. That is, we can just say count. So it will give me a summarized output. So what exactly it is giving the output is each of the gender wise, that is male and female wise, it is giving us the average spend, and it is giving us the total number of customers in each of the genders. So by looking at it, we can clearly see that the average spend of male customers is a bit higher, maybe due to the fact that there are more number of customers, more number of male customers. Maybe. So this is how we summarize the data. Now, if we want to do the same thing in R, Python, and SAS, is what we are going to learn as well. Because this is a small data, so directly we could have created a pivot table and we could have summarized the data. What if the data is more than a million? In Excel, anyways, we cannot have more than 10 48,576 rows. Possible to summarize the data because Excel somehow will not be able to handle that much amount of data. So for that, we will need the analytical tools. So let us learn how do we summarize the data using this analytical tool. So first, we are going to see how do we do that in R. Now, to do this in analytical tools, one good thing they have done is in all these analytical tools, they have given a SQL engine or a SQL package already built, which we need to just install or download. For SAS, it is already built in, so we don't have to worry anything about it. For R, we need to install that package. So to install the package, we need to install it like this. We just need to say install.packages and the package name, which is SQLDF. The reason we are using this package is because for this kind of queries, which include some sort of more coding, if we just know SQL queries, it becomes very easy for us to directly utilize those query in different tools, whether it is R or Python or even SAS. So that is the reason we are utilizing the package for it. So to install the package, first just say install.packages SQLDF. I'm currently not running this because the package is already installed in my system. So I'm just commenting it. To put a comment, just put a hash. Now, whenever once the installation is done, so in the console window, you will see some activity happening, and over here, you will see a red stop button also that will appear till the time it is installing the package. Once the red stop button stops, that means it has got downloaded correctly. Now in R, after installing the package, you always need to call the package using the library function. So the package name is SQLDF. We just need to run. Till the time you don't call the package, you will not be able to use this package. Installation is only required once, but for one active session of R, you will need to call the SQLDF package using the library function or any package for a matter of fact. So now we need to utilize this package, and with the SQLDF function, we can write down the SQL query. So let us write down this query. So for this requirement, wherein we want gender wise, what is the average spend and total number of customers. The SQL query will be select gender, comma, for each gender, we want average spend. So we'll just say average of spend. We will rename this column to average spend. Then what do we want is total number of customers. That is total of male customers, total of female customers. For that, we can just say count of gender, or count, you can take any variable you want because it will just count the number of records as total customers from the data set. So the data set is EX1, and then we need to say group by gender. So ideally what has happened is gender is a grouping variable. Why is it a grouping variable? Because in this output, if we see gender wise, we want something. So one good way to remember is whenever we have this type of questions, that gender wise we want something, region wise we want something, gender and region wise we want something. Before wise, whatever comes, ideally are your grouping variables, which you have to mention over here. Another rule is whatever you specify over here before your aggregate functions. So aggregate functions are sum, count, average, min, max. So these are your aggregate functions. I've used the aggregate function average over here. I've used the aggregate function count over here. Before aggregate functions, we need to specify the grouping variables, all the grouping variables. And whichever grouping variables are specified in over here, the same variables have to be there in the group by also. Otherwise, either you will get the errors or the output that you will get will not be correct because it won't be able to group it up. So we have this query and we'll just run this query and we will get the output. So again, gender wise, we have got the average spend and total number of customers. We can compare the numbers with what we had in the pivot table and it will be the same itself. Now in this, one more thing also we can do is we can sort our data. That is, we can do a sorting as well. Sorting is a process. Basically, either we want the output in ascending order or we want the output in descending order. So that can also be done directly using the SQL query itself. The only thing we'll have to do is we just have to use the order by clause. Order by gender, and we want gender by descend. Let's say we want it by descending. Currently, it's already in the ascending. We'll just say DESC. DESC is for descending, and we will just run this. So now it has sorted the gender in terms of descending order. We can also store this output in a new data set. Let's say the data set is EX12, and then we can directly see the output of EX12 as well. So this is how we have grouped it by gender and we have got the average spend and total number of customers directly. So even if you have a data of 1 million, 5 million, this analytical tools can do it quickly for us. Let us say we modify our requirement that over here we got gender wise average spend and total number of customers. What if gender and region wise we want the summary output? That is gender and region wise we want average spend and total number of customers. So if we have to do it in Excel, what we'll just have to do is we'll have to pull up region, and we can pull up region over here. So we can just modify the output a bit. We can just set display as a classic pivot table, and we can just even remove the support. Maybe this we can just repeat it. So now the way we have got is for each of the gender and each of the region. So one entry will be there for female northeast, one entry for female northwest, one for female southeast, one for female southwest, and the same goes for male customers as well. We have got the average spend and the total number of customers that are falling in each of the rows. So now the question was gender and region wise, we want the summary statistics of average spend and total number of customers. Since we want gender and region wise, ideally my grouping variables are now gender and region. So if we have to put this into our query, what we can just do is we can directly utilize this query, and over here itself, let me give the data set as ex13, and we can just give another column name, which is the region. We'll just say region. And like I said, the rule is whatever variables are there over here before your aggregate functions have to be there over here as well in the group by clause. If you observe, I've kept region before the aggregate functions itself. That is the thumb rule you have to follow. And then we can just see the output of ex30. And over here, first we have got male. The reason we have got male is because we have sorted it by descending order. So gender and region wise, we have got the spend. If we want the same kind of output which we had in the Excel, maybe you can just modify this. By default, it is ascending only, so no need to write anything. And we'll have the same output which we have in the Excel. So if we compare the numbers, female northeast, 12,953, and total customers are 161, which is exactly what we have. So this is how we can do it for multiple variables. Even if you have a third grouping variable, you can just put it over here and then put it over here. That is the concept of group by and order by. Now in R, we have utilized it using the SQLDF package. Not necessary that it has to be done only through this package. There are certain default functions also available in R, like one of the function is tapply, wherein based on that also we can directly get this kind of output. The only thing is, since SQL is the base of any of the query oriented language, if you know SQL, you have to utilize the same SQL queries everywhere just by using different functions. So that becomes a bit easy. But that doesn't mean that this is the only way that can be done in R. Okay. So that is how we have got the output of group by and order by. Group by is to group and give us a summarized output. Order by is for sorting. Now let us go to Python and do the same thing in Python as well. So in Python also, like in R, we have SQLDF package. In Python also, we have a Panda SQL package, which through which we can utilize the SQL queries. One thing you should always remember is don't always rely on these packages. Some of the things definitely can be done with in a quick thing, but like the SQLDF package also that was there of R, not necessarily all the SQL operations will be there. So in Python, the package is Panda SQL. So you will first need to install it. The way we need to install is using pip itself. So we'll just say pip install -u Panda SQL. And then you will get this kind of log, and it will successfully install it. Then you just have to remember this type of setup. If you can recollect it, you can write it yourself, but I find it easy to just keep this setup somewhere and just modify the query so that we don't have to write these commands again and again, which are a bit difficult to remember. So let us see the commands. So the command is from the pandas SQL framework, we have to import the PD SQL. And inside PD SQL, there is a SQLDF function in which we need to mention the query. So these two are the standard statements that you have to remember. This name you can give any name you want, but I would suggest you can just keep it somewhere, and whenever you need it, you just can directly take this commands directly. Then inside this, now inside this str, inside this double quotes, we need to write down the SQL query. Again, this can be any name you want. Inside this, we will write down the our SQL query. So again, the SQL query remains the same, which we saw in R. It was select gender, comma, average of spent as average spent, count of gender as total accounts, total customers, let's say, from EX1 group by gender. And then we need to call the PySQL function. So basically, in a way, what it is doing is this we are calling over here. And inside that, we are calling our query, which we have mentioned in the str1. And this entire output we are storing in a new data set called EX12. So we can just run this, and if we see the output of EX12, we will have the same summary of female and male. Over here also, you can modify it to sort it as well using the order by clause. So we can just say order by gender descending. We can just run this, and it will be the output will be sorted by descending. Similarly, we can include multiple grouping variables as well using the same concept, wherein we can just say gender comma region, and in the group by, again we can just add region, and then we'll see the same kind of output which we have got in Excel and in R as well. So this is how we can utilize the Pandas SQL framework, and we can use the SQL queries to do the task. In case if someone is not comfortable to use this package, or someone is not able to use this package, you can there is a function in Python, the AGG function, which is an aggregate function, through which also you can get an output, a similar kind of output, but you will have to the query it is something that you will have to remember. I have that query over here. Yeah. So we have a group by function also, which is the inbuilt function in Python. And in with that, we can use the AGG function, which is to aggregate. So the query is like this. From my data set, we are doing a group by on gender, and we are aggregating in a way that for spend, we want the average. So we are saying np.mean. What is np? It is nothing but the alias for numpy. So input numpy as np is what we just need to write at the top. Dot mean. Mean is for average. Similarly, if you want sum, we can just modify this to sum. Gender colon np dot size. Size is to get the frequency output, that is count. It is similar to count. And then once we have this, we can just rename the columns using the rename function, spent as total spent and gender as total customers. Even if we run this, we'll get a similar kind of output. We can even include multiple variables over here by putting a bracket like this. Within brackets, we'll then have to give. And then over here, we can just mention the second grouping variable like that. So that is how we can get to, using the inbuilt function of Python. If you are fine to use the Panda SQL itself, then I would suggest you go ahead with that itself, because for that, whether it's R or Python, you'll just have to remember the SQL query. You won't have to remember any other syntax for it. So that is how it is done in Python. Now let us do the same thing in SAS. In SAS also, we have a proc SQL that's available wherein we can write the SQL queries. So let us just utilize it and let us see how can we get the output. The same SQL query, in this you can directly even use the create table. So we can just say create table ex12 as select gender, comma, average of spent as average spent, count of gender as total customers from ex1 group by gender. Same query. And then we can just take a print of ex12 to see the output. And we'll get the same. Again, we can use the order by clause over here and just say order by gender descending, and we can get the output. Similarly, if we want to include another variable, the same way it goes, we can just include this, include O in the group by as well, and we can see the output. We can get the output accordingly. So now gender and region wise, we have the output. So whenever a summarization kind of output you will notice in any of the requirements, you will always see that summarization more or less your grouping variables will be ideally a categorical kind of variable, which will have certain categories. So gender wise we want something, age bucket wise we want something, region wise we want something. That is how we have the output. Let us say uh, for each country we want to see what is the total spent that has been in the last 6 months of a certain set of customers, like that. So one good thumb rule to remember is whenever we get this type of questions, whatever is there before wise, that is gender wise, we want something. So before wise, it is a gender. So gender will be my grouping variable. So that is on group by and sorting. Thanks for watching this video. Please put your comments and suggestions in the comment box. Thanks.